Hello all, this is Dr. Rajni Sharma, Associate Professor English. I deliver this lecture for Gyandoot 2.0, an initiative taken by Commissionerate College Education, Rajasthan, Jaipur. My topic today is on superstitions, an essay written by A.G. Gardiner, and my objective is to enable the students to learn this essay. First, we shall have an introduction to the essayist. Alfred George Gardiner was most powerful editor in the time of Edward VIII. He liked to be called Gardiner only. He didn't like first name. He was born in 1865 in Chelmsford, United Kingdom. He wrote under the pseudonym Alpha of the Plough. He was a famous essayist and journalist, and also editor of Daily News, London. He started his writing career with Star. His major works are Pillars of Society, The Warlords, Leaves in the Wind and Windfalls, Many Furrows in Prophets, and Priests and Kings. This great writer passed away in 1946. The essay on superstitions is taken from Alpha of the Plough, second series. It is written in first person narrative. It is a formal essay with the theme of superstitions, customs, traditions of English society, as well as the orthodox and fearful nature of its people. The essay is a combination of orthodox thinking as well as scientific reasoning. It is replete with humor, wit, and logic. The author is penetrating deep into the human mind and finding out various fear, anxieties, and mindset of people of England. The theme of the essay is superstitions, as the very title shows. The author is throwing light on various superstitions prevalent in English society. English people are very orthodox. As we know, the continuance of aristocracy in the society, English society shows that they like still in this era of democracy, they still continue aristocracy and they love their king very much. Here, the author is favoring some of the superstitions, though he denounces most of the superstitions as impractical in this scientific era. He begins the essay with the mention of number 13 and fears and anxieties that this number arouses in our minds. Gardiner keeps himself free from this number and doesn't give much importance to this number. He favors this number's role while lying on bed number 13, because the recovery may get delayed if patient is tense while lying on bed number 13. So the author is giving relaxation when some critical situations in life are there, some emergency is there. So the mind of the patient, the mind of the person who is going through dilemma should not suffer. That's why he is favoring giving relaxation to some superstitions. Gardiner opines that superstitions are the result of man's ignorance of laws of nature. He names some ancient dignitaries like Cicero, Alexander, Caesar, who were surrounded with fortune tellers. He regards this unreasonable to be superstitious in this age of science and technology. Modern man is more reasonable than his ancestors, though he believes in some of their thoughts like spirits and ghosts. Now we shall take some extracts and we shall explain them with reference and context. It was inevitable that the fact that the murder has taken place in a house with number 13 in a street, the letters of whose number 13 would not pass unnoticed. In the beginning of the essay, these are the breaking lines of the essay. The author is referring to the fact that 13 number in English society is thought to be unlucky. So it is inevitable, it is sure, if a murder is taking place in number 13 in a street, if the street carries 13 numbers, then everybody will notice it. Everybody will pay just attention to it. If we took the last 100 murders that have committed, I suppose we should find that as many have taken place in number 6 or 7, 6 or 7 street, or any other number you choose as number 13. Here author says that murder can occur anywhere. It may occur in street number 6 or 7 or any, just like 13. But if 13 is coming, then people will take it seriously. Law of average is as inexorable here as elsewhere. So the author says law of average is inexorable. It cannot be changed. Law of average is when one is adding up a similar quantity and dividing it by total number of quantity, then general estimate is there. So here law of average means general estimate. Here author says that general estimate is that murder or anything which is very serious in nature can occur anywhere, but this consideration does not prevent the world marking the fact that when number 13. So in other streets, people will think that it has occurred, there is law of average, but when number 13 is there, people will blame it to be 13. It has happened, this unlucky thing has happened because the number is unlucky. It is not a very a number of ill omen. Note that the world believes there is anything in that superstition. It is quite sure it is made childish folly. It is continuing. Number 13 thought to be unlucky is continuing in English society. It may be a folly only, foolishness only, but people give it very importance when any serious thing is occurring to it. The superstition, threadbare though it has worn, is still sufficiently real to enter into the calculation of a discreet landlord in regard to the letting qualities of his house and into the calculation of a hospital as to the curative properties of a bed. The author says that if a landowner is there, if a landlord is there, he will name his house, number his house 13. He will not give any name to his house which carries letters 13, because they are very discreet, they are very careful, because they know the letting quality of the house is affected by this. Letting quality is to let the house. The price of the house will come down when they are letting it, when they are giving it on a rent. So letting quality means rental values of the house will be degraded if a house is having any relation to number 13. So this superstition, though it is threadbare, it is of not very importance, it is of very less importance. Even then, it is sufficiently, it is very real when it is entering into the calculation of a careful landlord. Careful in the sense that the landlord thinks his house should not carry any bad thing with it, any bad name with it. And number 13 is thought to be unlucky, so he will think twice while giving it any number. The same is with the hospital. A bed which is carrying 13, a number 13, it will be affected in its curative properties. Curative properties, the quality, the characteristics to cure the patient. So the patient won't be cured very rapidly because his mind will be affected. In the latter case, in the case of a hospital, general agreement would support the concession to the superstition. Most of the people will agree that number 13 should not be there. Bed number 13 should be avoided, because though the superstition is very idle, it is not having any serious motive, serious any matter with it. But even then, when physical recovery is depending on mind, When in mind number 13 enters, the patient may have slow recovery. So, the slightest shadow of in the mind that the patient is lying on bed number 13 may affect the vitality of the patient. His vitality may be retarded, may be slowed, and even his recovery may be hindered. It may be defeated. There may be delay in the recovery. That's why the author is favoring this superstition as far as the hospital or any serious illness is concerned. Then these superstitions can be given concession. Florence Nightingale's almost passionate advocacy of flowers in sick bedroom was based on the necessity of the creation of a certain state of mind in the patient. Florence Nightingale, who was serving the soldiers during wartime, she was very vigorously advocating the presence of flowers in the bedroom of a sick. Why? Because flowers are presenting positive feelings in the mind of a patient. There is the certain state of mind is created. Patient's mind is turned into positive mode. There are few curious revelations in the moving record of M. Duhamel of medical experiences during the war than the case of the man who died of a pimple on his nose. The author says that M. Duhamel, who had recorded his experiences during wartime, he had many curious revelations, but this was the most curious when a patient died because of pimple on his nose. Pimple is not a very serious thing, it is not very serious ailment, but when the mental condition is such, then it may retard the recovery. He had been hideously mutilated in battle and was brought into the hospital a sheer wreck. This patient was mutilated. His all the body parts were amputated. He came in a very serious condition. He was his body parts were very in a wreck. They were in a very bad condition. Seriously, mutilation was there. Body parts were cut at different places, but he was brought into the hospital in a wreck, in a very severe condition, in total ruin. He was in wreck, just totally ruined condition was there, but all the ruined condition was passed up, and he seemed to have been saved. He was recovering when suddenly a pimple appeared on his nose. It was nothing in itself. It was not a very serious matter, but it created such a mental state that checked, that stopped the flickering return of life. The life which was flickering, which was brought to the body just as a flame is flickering, it was coming very slowly, but it was totally stopped when the patient died. He had in mind that he has a pimple on his nose. In this way, pimple created such a state of mind. So patient should have only positive things. His mind should be very in a very non-tense mood. He should not be having any kind of worries, and these kind affect the health of a person. It assumed a fantastic importance in the mind of the patient who was survived the heavy blows of fate. Though this patient who was who was very badly mutilated, who was badly disfigured, but he was survived the heavy blows of fate. When he was mutilated, when he was disfigured, this was very unlucky for him. There were heavy blows of fate on him, but he recovered all that. These serious things he got through, but he died very because of very unimportant thing like a pricking of the pin. It is not difficult to understand that so fragile a hold of life might yield to sudden discovery that you were lying in. So the hold of life is very fragile, very weak. It may yield, it may succumb to anything. And number 13 is a very serious problem. If patient can die because of pimple on his nose, then think what havoc it can cause when the patient has in mind that he is lying on bed number 13, which is unlucky, so he may have that state of mind that he will never recover. I never see a ladder against a house side without feeling that it is advisable to walk around it rather than under it. Here, in this paragraph, the essayist is giving concession to some of the superstitions prevalent in English society. English society prefers to walk around the ladder rather than walking through it or walking under it. And this is because of some very common sense, the points of some common sense, or worldly wisdom only, because it may cause injury, certain anything may fall on them. So he says, when I see a ladder against a house, then I feel it is advisable to walk around it rather than under it. One should go away from the ladder, around the ladder, rather than going under it, through it. I say to myself that it is not harmless to foolish superstition. It is not because we are paying any respect to any foolish superstition, but we are doing a duty to our family. We have to be alive to take care of the family. So it is a kind of respect to our family, affection for our family, that we are not inviting danger to ourselves. One must think of one's family. The fellow at the top of the ladder may drop anything. Here, the author says that anything may happen accidentally. Any person who is standing on the ladder, he may drop anything. He may even drop himself. He may have had too much to drink. Maybe he has drunken so much that he can't keep his balance and he may fall any moment. It may be that he is a victim of epileptic fits. Epileptic fits are the fits which may happen anywhere, anytime, and one is not having control on his body. So, and epileptic fits are coming when at unreasonable times and places. When one is sitting, these fits are not coming. They are coming when one is riding or one is doing anything very important. And at the ladder, if epileptic fit is coming, it is not strange. So it is mere measure of ordinary safety to walk around the ladder. So because of safety, it is not because of any superstitions that we should walk around the ladder rather than walking under it. But it is safety, and with the point of safety, one should do that. No man is justified in inviting danger in order to flaunt his superiority to an idle fancy. Moreover, probably the fancy has its root in the common sense fact that a man on a ladder does occasionally drop things. No doubt, many of the superstitions have these commonplace and sensible origins. Here, the author says that most of the superstitions are having a very common sense origin. They are based on common sense. They are based on worldly wisdom, and that's why they are still continuing. If they had been not important, they should have died years ago, centuries ago. So he says the fancy has its roots in the common sense fact. All these, most of the superstitions which are prevalent in the society, they are based on some common sense, worldly wisdom. And because a man on the ladder may occasionally drop things, no doubt many of the superstitions have these common. So here Gardiner is favoring superstitions in society because most of them are based on common sense and on practical reason. I imagine, for example, that Jewish objection to pork as unclean or religious grounds is due to the fact that in eastern climate it is unclean or physical grounds. The author says that Jews don't eat pork, the meat of pig. They don't eat. Why they don't eat? It is not only on religious grounds. It is not only a religious thing. It is also a scientific thing, a thing of hygiene. Because in eastern countries, pigs are not living in very clean conditions. They are living in drains. They are living in at filthy places. That's why eating their meat may invite some danger to the health. It may be inviting bacteria and germs. That's why these Jews are not eating pork. But these shadowy reminiscences of antique credulity, which we discover in ourselves, play no part in the lives of any of us. They belong to a creed outworn. Superstition was disinherited when science revealed the laws of the universe and put man in their place. Here, the author says that these are shadowy reminiscences, the remembrances of the past, antique time. These are the remembrances of ancient time, ancient faith, which we discover in ourselves, and we are still continuing those things which were prevalent in ancient society. It is having no importance in any life, not playing any very important part in our life. They belong to a creed outworn. They belong to a faith which is no more there. It is no more in use. Superstition was disinherited when science revealed the laws of universe. So most of the superstitions were renounced when the laws of science came into light and man put in his place. So it was not discredited to be superstitious when all the functions of nature were unexplored. In ancient times, people were superstitious because they were not aware of the science, they were not aware of the laws of nature, and man was plaything of beneficent or sinister forces. He was like a toy in the hands of either beneficial forces or cruel forces. Nature has two forms. First is beneficial, and the second is very disastrous. For example, rain is beneficial, but storm is disastrous. Fire in the gas stove is very beneficial, but fire which is burning the house, that is a sinister force. So man in early days was a toy in the hands of two forces of nature which are either beneficial or cruel, and he could neither control nor understand. So he was worshipping everything which were out of his understanding, away of his understanding. He used to worship those things which were out of his control and which held him in the hollow of their hands. So he started worshipping those things which controlled him. He related everything that happened in nature to his own inexplicable existence. If anything bad happened to him, he thought that he has done something evil. If anything good happened to him, he thought it is the reward of God to him. So he saw his fate. Man in ancient times saw his fate in clouds, his happiness or misery in flight of birds, and he referred every phenomenon of life to the soothsayers and oracles. So earlier, the man used to go to fortune tellers, to oracles, and used to take their guidance rather than believing in the laws of nature, rather than believing in the law of average. He used to think that all these are related to his own actions. You may read in Thucydides of battle being postponed because some omen that had no more relation to the event than the falling of leaf was against it. Thucydides was a Greek historian in 1460 to 400 BC. So he wrote a book on battles, and he is describing how battles were lost or postponed because of some omen. And this omen was not very important. It was as insignificant and natural as falling of the leaf. But people used to give importance to it, and kings used to postpone the war because of them. When Pompey was afraid that the Romans would elect Cato as praetor, he shouted to the assembly that he heard thunder, and he got the whole election postponed, for the Romans would never transact business after it thundered. Here example is given. Pompey was a Roman general. He was from 106 to 48 BC. So this great general, when he was afraid that Romans would elect Cato, he thought that Cato, the Roman statesman, would be elected as praetor statesman. So he shouted to the assembly that he had heard thunder. So he told people that he had heard thunder, and it is a tradition in Romans that they never transact any business after thundering. So the election was postponed. So in this way, omens or these superstitions had a great role in ancient times also, and most of the politicians used to take benefit of these superstitions for their own selfish motives. And great it is not only a weakness of weak people, it was weakness of great people also, who were very sound in reasoning, sound in mind. And here this Gardiner is giving example of many of the great personalities, dignitaries who were victim of these superstitions. Alexander surrounded himself with fortune tellers. He is giving the example of Alexander the Great, who used to surrender himself with the fortune tellers. He was a king of ancient Greek kingdom of just Macedon, and he surrounded himself with fortune tellers. He took counsel with them as modern ruler takes counsel with ministers. Fortune tellers were surrounding him to give advice, as prime minister today is taking admission, taking counsel of ministers. Even so great a man as Caesar, so modern and enlightened a man as Cicero left their fate to augurs and omens. So all these great people, whether it was Cicero, whether it was Caesar, they used to take the help of augurs and omens, fortune tellers. Sometimes the omens were right and sometimes they were wrong. And not every time these omens were right, but whether right or wrong, they were equally meaningless. Cicero lost his life by trusting to the wisdom of prose. When he was in flight from Antony and Caesar Augustus, he put to sea and might have escaped. Here example is given. Cicero, he was a very great politician and he lost his life because of augurs only. So he believed in the wisdom of crows, and when he was running, when he was leaving his country, he saw some crows were surrounding his vessel, his ship, and he thought that they were indicating something ill is going to happen to him in the sea, because he thought some storm is going to happen. He came to shore and he was executed. So, so great a man as Caesar and so modern a man as Cicero left their life to others. Cicero lost his life by trusting to the wisdom of prose. When he was flight from Antony and Augustus, he put to sea and might have escaped, but he believed in it and he came to the shore and he was killed. It is pleasant to be about when light is abroad. We do not know much more the power that turns the handle of this idle showman show than our forefathers did, but at least we have escaped the grotesque shadows that envelop them. We do not look for divine guidance in the entrails of animals or the flight of crows that house the commons does not adjourn at a clap of thunder. So here Gardiner is feeling happy that we are born in a happy time. We don't believe in all these foolish things. We believe only those things which are scientific, which are traditional. He says that there is a power, superpower, a power of Almighty that is turning the whole handle of this show. All this show is going on because God is controlling us, and we do not have knowledge of God more than our fathers. Though we have made scientific advancement, but our ancestors, our forefathers, also had as much knowledge of God as we have. So we at least we have escaped the. Though we are same in spiritual matters, in religious matters, we do not have much more knowledge than our ancestors, but at least we are better than them because we do not believe in these grotesque shadows of superstitions which were enveloping them, which were covering them, surrounding them. We do not look for divine guidance in the entrails of animals. So inside the animal, we don't think gods are living, or we don't believe in flight of crows which are guiding something, indicating something, auguring something, as Cicero did. And House of Commons is not adjourned. It is not just ended with the clapping of the thunder. So it is, house is not suspended when thundering is there, as was fashion in Romans. Now we are coming to the style of the essay. The essay is autobiographical in tone. It is in the form of a story with colloquial style. The essayist Gardiner is having the style of a journalist, and facts laid before readers. All the facts are given, who did which thing, and how most of the great people invited death to themselves by believing in augurs, by believing in superstitions. And author himself is admitting his weakness, that he is also not immune to some of the superstitions. There is clearness of expression. He is able to convey the message to the readers. Sometimes there is humor also, and which makes the essay very interesting. Historical allusions and mostly of Greek and Romans are in abundance, and author is presenting himself. He is just bringing himself as a social reformer, though he honors traditions and customs, but he projects himself as a reformer who is cautioning the modern man not to believe in those superstitions or omens which are not scientific or not based on common sense. Thanks a lot for being with me.